Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I've learned as I've grown into the person that I am today. And it is November 1st. I'm gonna do some meditations here in a second, but I had just fed out this idea a couple days ago that going forward on this channel, I'm gonna do it's not really so much a book club as it is a book read-along of self-help and motivational books. So I'm starting that this month. I picked the book for this month. This is a book that has been recommended to me many, many times, and it is The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, and I'm really, really excited about reading this. I don't really know a whole lot about this book. I have friends of mine that swear by this book and say it really changed them and it changed their perspective on things. It's actually a really, really short book. It is, let me see, it is 138 pages, so it's something that's easy to get through. I will be reading this book, and then I will be giving, a little bit of an update or review at the end of the month on what I think about this book. I wanted to pick a book that was specific to gratitude for this month, and I kind of went through some books that I like and some things, that have affected me as far as gratitude, but I couldn't really find any one book. I wanted to read Simple Abundance, but I think what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to go tomorrow to Half Price Books or Sunday, and I'm going to try to find the Simple Abundance daily meditation book and get it as one of my new daily meditations that I read over here, and then try to do a month, well, starting tomorrow or Sunday, a month of, gratitude-focused meditations, because I think that would be, good for over here. But because it is the month of November, and it is Thanksgiving in the United States, and we like to focus a lot on gratitude and giving thanks to things in the month of November, I really want to focus a lot of the things that I talk about over here, or the meditations or personal stories of my life, on gratitude and how gratitude has changed my life, which gratitude in the last couple years has, specifically in the last year, has profoundly changed my life. And I've told this on here many, many times, but if you're new to this channel or whatever, I kept a gratitude list, a written gratitude list for almost a year in a notebook. And I had 2 notebooks. But anyway, and I would write them down every night before I went to bed when I did my prayers and my meditations and things. And then I would make a written gratitude list of things that were specific just to that day. And then I would read it out loud to myself. And it really made me go through the day and realize on a daily basis, even just little small things, how grateful I am for what I'm given on a daily basis. So, and if I find something else that's gratitude-based, then we will, possibly read that as well this month. But there's not really any real structure. It's just if you want to join along, you can. I'll probably reference this book as I read it this month. But it's not going to be there's no group to follow. You just follow along over here. If you want to read it, go get this book and get it on Amazon, I'm sure, anywhere. It says A Practical Guide to Personal Freedom. Over 2 years on the New York Times bestseller list. In The Four Agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz reveals the source of self-limiting beliefs that rob us of joy and create needless suffering. Based on ancient Toltec wisdom, the Four Agreements offer a powerful code of conduct that can rapidly transform our lives to a new experience of freedom, true happiness, and love. So yeah, and it goes in here, and it's very short chapters, and I'm real excited to start this. So anyway, that's the book that we're going to be reading for the month of November, The Four Agreements, and if you want to read along with me, I would love that. Okay, let's get into some meditations for today. I just grabbed 4 meditation books. These are the 4 that I have. And let's start with A Time to Be Free, Daily Meditations for Enhancing Self-Esteem. I have no idea what these meditations will say to us. And when I go into a meditation like that, well, I mean, every morning I do, right? But I really try to go into it trying to find something that maybe like my higher power or the universe is speaking to me that day. So let's go to November 1st. Okay. I love the sound of just pages turning. I know that sounds so corny, but I just love that. I love little sounds. And one of the things I've really learned about being still is when you are still and silent, you notice things like clocks ticking. And it was weird because earlier this year I read Our Town by Thornton Wilder, and I think I had read it when I was in high school, or I don't know, but anyway, I didn't remember a whole lot about it, but she talks about that at the end, when she's looking back on her life. She talks about clocks ticking. November 1st. When we were finally willing to have our shortcomings removed and humbly turn to God, they were removed. Sometimes all at once, sometimes gradually. For many of us, this was the first time we had tested our faith. We were amazed and delighted with the results. We knew with certainty we had a faith that worked. But there was more to it than that. Since we're human, we're sometimes inclined to revitalize a character defect when we sense it might be useful. We throw a tantrum, for example, to get our way. We may also temporarily try to run the show, forgetting how powerless we really are. In spite of our occasional excursions into willingness, we believe that God always stands ready to exert his power on our behalf, so long as we humbly ask him to do so. We also believe that we must do our part, the footwork, in order to show our willingness. We may ask God to remove our impatience, selfishness, or explosive temper, for example, but we also need to act in faith by trying to be as patient and unselfish as we can, and by exercising self-restraint to the best of our ability. Thought for today. God's strength is always available, even when I take back my will or try to exhume an old behavior. You know, it's interesting because as I'm reading this, it's language that would have really turned me away from recovery when I first got sober, because I would have just heard it as like God talk, Bible thumping, and it would have really turned me off. One of the most powerful things that has come as a result of me being in a 12-step program is me being able to find my own higher power, or none if I chose, to follow that path, or just have the universe or, the wind or whatever, be my higher power. And I think that that's really, an important part of a 12-step program that we don't talk very often about. I do believe in a spiritual higher power. And that's what works for me. And in speaking of that, I'm just going to speak to that part right now. It's interesting, this whole idea of turning things over to faith. And faith is a hard thing, Faith is easy to have when you aren't having to hand over your life to something that you can't see, And I think that's really faith. And faith doesn't have to be something in a higher power. Faith can be something in the idea of love in a relationship, or, in your faith in your choices that you're making, things like that. And that sometimes you just have to, theoretically, step off the cliff and just be like, okay, things are going to be okay. It's the whole idea, that Maya Angelou said, that when you're in the middle of the biggest tragedy in your life, look up and say thank you, because you're about to learn one of the greatest lessons of your life. That's faith, That's faith that there's going to be something great that comes out of this. I don't go there quickly, and I don't go there willingly. I'm very resistant to faith sometimes. But today when I'm going through something, especially if it's something that repeats itself over and over and over, I try to look at it and finally say to myself, okay, God, I don't know what you have planned for me, but, and I learned this from many, many different people, It's kind of acceptance and surrender. I've given an example in here before where Oprah did that. I try to look at it and go, okay, God, I don't know what you have planned for me, but this is obviously part of it. This is part of my journey. I'm just going to trust that, there's something out there that knows better than I do. At the end of my life, if I find out there is nothing there, I don't lose anything by, having tried to understand things through love, compassion, and kindness. I just don't, or to analyze my journey and say, okay, what can I learn from this situation? What did this situation teach me? What was the lesson here? I don't lose anything by doing that in my life, right? So I'm not somebody that believes in strict doctrine, but I am somebody that believes in a spiritual higher power. And for me, it makes me feel not so all alone sometimes. I have seen prayer and positivity work in miraculous ways. I really, really have, and I think, when I look back on my addiction, in all honesty, I probably shouldn't be here right now, And so to some degree, I think that that's a miracle. That's why many times in recovery, we say we're all miracles, And I look at that and I think to myself, of miracles that I've seen happen with people all the time, that it happens. I'm a huge believer in prayer and positive affirmation. I really, really, it has changed for me in the last year as far as having a peace and serenity inside of myself that I never knew was possible. So I know that it works, even if it's just changing the way that I talk to myself in my head. If it's nothing other than that, I know that it works, And then you take it on another level and you look at removing negativity and toxicity and chaos from your life, trusting, the journey, trusting the process, focusing on something positive, and that there might be a lesson in this, trusting something that's maybe bigger than you, There's a lot of ego and pride that goes into thinking that we are the end all, And I think for me, even if I don't believe in something that's a higher power than myself, to believe that there is bigger things at work in the universe than myself really right-sizes me and humbles me, like I was talking about the other day. It makes me realize, you know what, like, we each live very, very small lives, and yes, we have an impact on other people and other things around us, but at the same time, you know, that's why it's easy for me to kind of stay over here, you know, and just be like, okay, Peter, take care of Peter. You don't need to take care of 50 other things, right? But I have seen prayer work. I really, really have, you know, and it's crazy to me when it happens, but maybe blessings in disguise. Like, it doesn't necessarily happen the way that I want it to happen or the way that I think it should happen, and that's me wanting to play God, but it happens in a way that it's supposed to happen. You know, it's like, so I've explained this before, like, on my vlog, right? Like, maybe I want some huge amount of windfall of money, right? Okay, well, I don't win the lottery. Like, let's just say that's not, I'm like, okay, God, let me win the lottery, right? Because I need money. I want this huge amount of money. And that doesn't work, right? But what I do what does happen is maybe I get a couple bills that I can't afford to pay. And so what it does is it makes me align my finances to realize, well, maybe I don't need this. Maybe I don't need this. Maybe I don't need that, right? And then over a period of time, what happens is I do have more money than I had before, because what I realized is through this experience that I didn't need to be spending my money on all of these things that I wasn't spending it on. So I was granted my prayer. I was granted my wish. It just didn't come to me the way that I wanted it to, and it's blessings in disguise. Things like that happen to me all the time, you know, when I get what I want, but not necessarily the way that I wanted it. And I also think that's just life, you know, I just think it's life. So I think that's a really, really powerful message. So I'm gonna leave you guys with that. I hope you guys are having a fantastic beginning to your weekend and a beginning to November. I hope you had a wonderful Halloween if you celebrate Halloween. I love you, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.